All right, hello everyone. Uh, it's good to see you again. This is the horse racing simulation fantasy league thing I've been telling you guys about. I wanted to make a video so that the nine of you that said you'd like to play know actually what you the hell you do, and then the two of you that said you might want to play can watch this and decide if you want to. So this is about uh, Chris Lewis's. This is what's called Chris Lewis's Google Sheets based horse racing simulation Dynasty Fantasy League. But I got some feedback that the name was too long and was kind of ridiculous, so we'll call it the Horse Racing Fantasy League. Um, there's three things that you guys will do. One is draft. It'll be an auction draft, so I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. And then uh, so then you do that after that every 2 weeks you'll enter your horses in races and you'll make claims. So I'm going to show you how to do that stuff. Um, so I made so far 400 horses, but only 160 of them will be available to be drafted. And if you've done the math, then if we've got I might make more if a couple more people join, but 160 horses divided by 10 or so people, uh, 20 to 16 to 25 horses per team might sound like a lot, but it's really not because you're going to rest them regularly and you're not going to race them every week. Um, I can show you how the rest of the spreadsheet stuff works, but I'm going to try to keep this video short. A lot of you have already seen that, but I just want to give you a shorter video that says how you actually do it. A fourth thing, by the way, is that you can breed your horses, but that will be in the off season, so I'll explain it later. Um, what I've done is I randomly assigned predetermined values on a bell curve over several different factors, and then it spit out a number of how good the horses are. I've blacked out the horse numbers and names, so you can't see who they are now because you're going to eventually have really good information regarding how good the horses are, but you're going to have imperfect information. You're going to get their grade, which is a score of how good they are. I can show you the scale later, but then there's these exact numbers, and you're not going to get these exact numbers. The draft, this will be the homepage that you guys will all have access to with different links to stuff, and I'll post the races that you can enter into and the results and all sorts of stuff. But first, the draft. This will be a sheet that everyone can edit. And in an auction draft, I'll randomly determine the order. You'll then nominate, let's say Jimmy has the first pick. He gets to nominate a horse between, right now, the plan is through 1 and 160. So let's say he wants to nominate to uh, Ginkle Winker here to be the first horse. So he'd type 14 in here, and we could all be logged on to this at the same time. It'll show you Ginkle Winkers on the auction block, and the grade is C. And he can open the bid, use whole numbers only, please, at 1,000, let's say. And you can see it made him the top bid. So then everyone else can start bidding. Maybe Andrew bids 3, Kalen bids 4, so Jimmy goes to 5, and Casey goes to 20. Anyway, when you guys stop in bids, I'll be watching, and then I'll hit this sold. So then I'll record the results. Uh, Real quick, I have a shorthand way of doing it. And once I've done that, then whoever's next can nominate their horse. We'll clear these. And then maybe, let's say Nate's next. He can nominate horse number 55, Nuclear Spritz, and then he starts it. Let's say Jimmy spent $5,000 on horse number 1. You'll notice that this got reduced. It might not end up being 300,000 if I might change that, but whatever you don't use will carry over. Um, you guys might not draft everyone. Here's the grading scale, by the way. So maybe some of these at the bottom you guys might not feel are worth even $1,000. Um, in that event, I'll still enter those horses into races, and you might have a chance to own them later. So that's the draft. Once everyone is either out of money or no longer wants to bid on horses that are available, the draft will be done, and I'll enter them in. You'll be able to see them on the league page in a number of places, but one will be on the stables page. Here's an example of what the stables page is going to look like. Everyone has the colors that they told me they wanted. It's going to have all sorts of monetary information. At the end of the season, whoever has the most money here wins. And the top 6 will get payouts, because in horse racing, the top 6 horses in a race get some level of payout. So that's the draft. I'm kind of just shooting from the hip here. So if there's any questions, let me know. I kind of enjoy talking about this stuff, so it doesn't bug me. The second thing that you'll do is enter your horses into races. And so it's every 2 weeks. So I'll announce what races are coming up in 2 weeks, and then you guys will get a sheet that looks like this. There will be up to 16 races, but not necessarily 16. And so what I would do is I wouldn't look at this first. I would go to my stable and say, and I put 2 horses on stables just to demonstrate. But so Jimmy owns the horse named Jeff. Jimmy can look at this, and I think that, and your whole list of horses will be here. Jimmy might say, I think first thing is evaluate. Does he want to enter Jeff in a race this week, or does he want him to rest? If he wants him to be entered into a race, then you go to the sheet that I produce and say, okay, what race would be a good fit for Jeff? So some have a higher payout, a few have an entry fee. There's 3 different kind of races that I need to tell you about, but there's other criteria. Like some will be grade restricted. Some are for females only or males only. There's age restrictions. There's distances, and 2 different surfaces. Okay, the 3 different kinds of races, and then this matters for the third thing you do, the claiming thing. So the rarest kind of race is the stakes race, and those are like the big graded championship races. Those are the only races that have entry fees. And on the league homepage, you'll see a schedule of all the big championship stakes races and when they occur, so you can rest your horses and plan accordingly. There's also allowance races, which are just regular races that you enter your horses in. They vary in purse size, but they're free to enter. I think eventually you guys will look at the purse size and put your best horses in the races that have the higher purse sizes, and your middle graded races and the ones with middle purse sizes, and so on. But at first, I think I'll put grades on them so that we have kind of even races. The third kind of race is called a claiming race, and those are the ones highlighted in yellow. So in horse racing, most races are claiming races. And what you do is you're not only entering your horse in the race to win the prize money, but you're also putting the horse up for sale for the claim amount. So like if you entered your horse into, I kind of made this a ridiculous purse size, but if you entered your horse into race number 1, then you would be trying to win your portion of the $1 million purse prize, but you're also saying that your horse is for sale for $10,000. And then you other stable owners are going to be able to buy the horses that are in claiming races. So after everyone turns their entries in, says, I want to put Jeff in this race or Nuclear Spritz in this race, I'll release this sheet. All right, so you'll get a sheet like this that shows what horses have been entered into the race. So some of them will be allowance races and some might be stakes races, but you'll see The third thing that you do is you go in for each claiming race, and they'll be highlighted in yellow. You go over to the right and decide if you want to put in a $10,000 claim. In other words, you'll buy the horse. You're willing to buy the horse for $10,000. So, let's say you're Jimmy. Jimmy couldn't put in a claim for Jeff because he already owns Jeff. But let's say he wanted to put in a claim for gluten intolerance, who's owned by Kalen. He could do that. And the grades here are here, and that'll help you decide. Like, a couple of these are like grade C and D horses, which is, those are better horses. So maybe he wants to make a claim for Lemke. Just to illustrate, race number 2 is not a claiming race. So it'll show you all the entries here, but there's no claims for you to make. On race number 3, it's a claiming race, and the price is $20,000. So over here, you'd evaluate whether you'd like to buy any of these horses for $20,000. Okay, so this is how when you get this entry sheet, and you decide you want to put Jeff in race number 3, for example, you're each going to have your own one of these. And Jeff is horse number. Let's go back. Oops. Jeff is horse number. You'll be able to see this on your stable. 191. So if you wanted to enter horse number 191 in race number 1, let's say, then you'd go here and you would do this. And if let's say you also own horse number 3, and you thought that horse number 3 was a good fit for race number 5, then you would go like this. Let's say you also own horse number 20, and you also think they would be a good fit for horse number 5. You'd put them there too. So one per cell, but you can put more than one of your horses in a race. You can't put Jeff in 2 races. Jeff can only race in 1 race per day. So that wouldn't be okay. Okay. So you'll fill this out, and that's how I'll put the entries in. Once you've looked at the announced entries and you know who you want to claim, you can go to your claim sheet. Everyone will have their own one of these. They're private ones. And let's say you want to claim Jeff, who's racing in race number 1. Jimmy can't because he already owns Jeff. So let's say he wants to claim gluten intolerance, who's horse number 173. Then he goes here and he puts 173. Oops. I'll then simulate the races, which are going to be based on this, their ability here, but as modified by some variable factors, which include whether it's raining or not, the surface, dirt versus turf, because different horses are better on turf or dirt, or better or worse in the rain, based on their post position, which is randomly determined, and then the distance of the race. Races will be between 6 and 12 furlongs. So if you have a horse that's built for a shorter distance and you put them in a race that is a longer distance, then they're going to struggle. Then I'll run the numbers, and I thought, hey, is there a cooler way to present this than to just give you guys the numbers that it spits out? And so it will look like this. And I want to broadcast it live on Zoom if you guys want to come Tuesday nights, and otherwise, if you can't or don't want to, I'll post a link to the video on the homepage. Again, there's like a lot that goes behind this that most of you have seen already, but if you want to see in more detail how all this gets put together, then I can show you. These are just random numbers. You can't get a sense of how fast Moonbeam or Seatback and Tray Table are based on this graphic. Okay, so then the other thing that's going to be private to you on your entry, you have your entry sheet, and your claim sheet is going to be your stable's assessment, and in here is going to be these numbers, which is how good the horse is, but slightly off. Everyone's is going to be off by the same amount. So everyone's information is going to be imperfect, but it's all going to be different. So for example, Jimmy might have this horse overestimated by 3 and this horse underestimated by 5, while Zach has this horse overestimated by 3 and this horse underestimated by 5. So everyone's inaccuracies will be in the same amount, but it'll all be different. That way, you'll all evaluate them slightly differently, and you won't have an exact sense of what how good they are. So between the grade that it gives you, which is a scale of every 15, and the number that you have, which is a pretty good indicator, but not a perfect one, you're gonna have a real good sense of how good the horses are. Um, if you don't want to get into this much detail, you can just use the grades. But the grades are, again, there's a big difference between 70 and 84, but they're both going to be D grade. So if you want to get a better sense, you're going to go to your stable's assessment. And even though the number is going to be a little bit wrong, you might see that one is 83 and one is 72 and evaluate them like that. Okay, there's also a rules and notes page. There's a bunch of pages here that you guys can check out. This is going to show all the draft picks and claims that are made. Again, you can breed in the off season, but this won't be meaningful to you now. This is how good the horses are, by the way. It unsurprisingly fell on a bell curve. It's like an average horse is between 40 and 75, I guess. The best horse is 138 and the worst one is negative 50 or so. That's the scale. Here's common purses so that you can check out how much you would win if you won. So if a purse is 80 grand, if you won it, you'd win 48 grand. But the first, second, and third place winners actually have to pay a fee to their trainers and jockeys. So you would take home 38,400. There's costs. Everyone pays 3,000 every 2 weeks, no matter what. And this math will be done for you, but you pay 1,900 every 2 weeks per horse. So you'll have to evaluate whether it's worth it to own a horse. Maybe you want to prioritize quality over quantity, or maybe you want to prioritize quantity over quality, or have some sort of balance. Here's the rules and notes page. So you're invited it explains race types, and as questions come up, I'll fill this out. It talks about fatigue, how they are not made to race every 2 weeks and you're going to rest them. There's also this all horses page, which is sortable. So you guys can come look at how good they are, how old they are, and how much they've won and stuff. Okay, so even though the information you're going to get is imperfect, and there's uncontrollable variables like weather and post position and random race performance on any given day, because they're not going to race exactly as expected every day. They, on a bell curve, will race as you would tend to expect, but they'll have days where they have really good days where they have slightly bad days where they have really bad days, and that's all randomized. So I'm confident that you guys will set yourselves apart from each other by allocating your resources strategically in the draft, assessing quantity versus quality. I don't know which is better. Entering your horses in the right races where they can win money and or get claimed for good value. And by the way, when you go to enter your horses in claiming races, you're going to have a good sense of how much they're worth, because we're going to have already done a draft. So if you bought a horse in the draft for 15 grand, then when you look at this and you see there's a claiming race for 15 grand, you're going to have a sense that your horse is worth about that much. If you enter him in a race where the claim amount is 30 grand, chances are he's going to be racing against horses that are also worth 30 grand, and he's not going to stand much of a chance of winning. And he probably won't get claimed either, because people don't want to spend 30 grand on a $15,000 horse. Vice versa, if your horse is worth 15 grand and there's a race with a claim amount of 5 grand, you're going to stand a really good chance to win a lot of prize money. And there's also a good chance that someone else will claim the horse, but you'll only get 5,000 for him. The other thing that's going to help you set yourselves apart from each other is making good claims yourself. Okay, so then let me know if there's questions. I'm going to also start a Slack. I think a lot of you guys are familiar with Slack, but it's a productivity platform, workspace thing. Anyway, that way I can put announcements and polls like when you want to have a draft date and stuff. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks, guys. Let me know when you watch the video. Thanks.